Good morning, everyone. It's exciting because we have a great honor to be here today and talk big data and what is big data for large companies. And I have this great panel here that would like to demonstrate what could be done, what is the future, how are we going to use big data, and what's the role of Israel in it. In the last 7 years, I've been leading P&G Israel House of Innovation. It's P&G Open Innovation Desk in Israel, partnering with academic institutions, with the Israeli government, and with startup companies to bring the latest innovation coming from Israel into P&G. And with that, I would like to start with my great partner here, Sophie Blum, to ask, we're here talking about big data analytics, and we're not in P&G an energy company, we're not healthcare, those obvious players that need big data. What does consumer goods and big data has to do with each other?
That's a good question. Thank you, Lital. I mean, I think that's a question that we've been asked a few times. But the first and foremost thing is that P&G is a big thing. It's a big thing, and it's a big company. P&G is touching every day 4.4 billion consumers. So, I mean, through the products, definitely, and through the way we are operating. Every year, Procter is interacting with more than 50,000 consumer research all over the world. Procter is leveraging more or less 8,000 R&D employees to do research and to get to learnings. That's very nice. All of this together, you can easily imagine, and total revenue of Procter is more or less $85 billion. So it's a lot. It's a lot, and it's a lot of data. Now, I mean, the data always existed. Now we were talking a few moments ago about the fact that, we always had data. We were more or less big, but we were always have data. Now, the thing that has become, I would say, incredible and that has become a no-miss is what do we do with this? And the more, every day we have a little bit more data. Every day we have, the challenge for us is definitely to find the right insights, real life, and in the right context, and with the right relevancy. And I think that's overall the big challenge for a company like ours. I'm not saying we've cracked it, but certainly with Israel, I would say we are on our way to make it much more digestible and much more action-oriented. So I think that's what we can say about the data.
And Shelly, research company, of course you deal with data on a daily basis, but what does it really mean, big data, for you guys?
I think big data are just two words that we use to sound smart, truthfully, as a research company. I mean, let's all be honest about it. It really isn't about big data. I don't even really know what that means. Data is just data if we don't, contextualize it and make it relevant. And big data, little data, any data, it should be smart data. And I think we should change the words. Data for data's sake really is useless. And I think the problem that we have as researchers is the problem. We're researchers. And so we start with data and then try to make a story come from it versus flip it on its head and said, what are the questions that we need to answer? And then based on the questions, how do we use the different data streams and information that we have access to, and not just look at data as bits and bytes in isolation, but how do we create knowledge from that to answer questions? And if we ask ourselves, not what are we going to do with big data, but what questions do we have to answer today, and then back into it, what data do we need to answer that, and how do we correlate and integrate the disparate data sources to tell a story, I think we will stop saying that we just do big data and we'll start delivering real answers.
And I think we have with us here a real example of a company that does it, Verix. Doron, what is big data for you, the way you see it?
So it's first of all, thanks for having us, and thanks to Sophie for having the vision to create the House of Innovation in Israel. And embracing innovation simply as you realize, for a company the size we are, to get to do business with Procter & Gamble, for those of you who sold in enterprise, it would take about, on average, about 100 years. Not something that we all enjoy living. So thanks to that vision and innovation and ideas, we were brought together to really capitalize on this vision of how do you extract knowledge and insight from data. And I think you've done a lot of my job very easy because you demonstrated the essence of why Verix was born. It was born from the idea of two very nice gentlemen, Chagai and Amir, that Sophie knows very well. And they were really, if you think about any research analysis in Israel that was done, a BI project that was done in Israel, they were in the midst of it. And they were very instrumental to those products. And what they realized after tremendous investment of time and energy and money into those projects, they realized exactly what you said. People are interested in the business question they have, not about putting a dashboard or a bunch of reports that, as you've seen, you take it and you're like, how does that mean something to my business? It doesn't. And so that frustration basically caused them to build this company that put the pyramid upside down. And what do I mean by that? The first element of that was, well, they started to ask themselves, why is it that nobody uses those reports and dashboards? Because it meant something to them. And they realized three obstacles to really being able to leverage that and get to the point where you got insights. The first one being, I'll call it, for lack of better words, big data. But essentially what people do today to avoid the big data is they sort of either do research in silo or they'll just summarize a lot of the data. They'll aggregate it and do research on that. Well, when you aggregate data, as you know, you lost most of the essence of the data. It has meaningless. And so to avoid that, we created technology that really go and scavenge hundreds of billions of records and really look for meaningful statistical events or anomalies. That's the first element. Then we said, well, we found something statistical. We all know the famous saying that statistical is about a lot of different ways of lying. So we said, well, what's the meaning of that? How do we take the essence of the statistical phenomena and vet them out that they match the business, which had to do a lot with domain expertise. And when we mean domain expertise, it's domain expertise in the area of business analysis, acumen. It's about understanding the platform with which you work with and understand the domain expertise of Procter & Gamble, for instance, for that matter, of the market itself. And so we thought that if we have a way to embed domain expertise into our platform, making sure that the statistical findings we find are relevant and actionable, that would be the second step. And the third step, as you know, both business changes tremendously every day, every hour. There's a new competitor that comes to market. There's a new way of competing in the marketplace. I remember we did the research with Nielsen, for that matter, and if you all know the story about Glasot, vitamin water, the way they launched it to the market was entirely different than all the traditional ways vitamin waters were sold to that point. It was sold in a completely different distribution channel, in a completely different manner, and hence it started to grow much before the bigger player noticed that growth. By the time they noticed it, it was way too late, and then they got into the mainstream. And so the third point was agility, was how do you keep changing those platforms that do the research in an automated manner in a very cost-effective way that you can keep changing those platforms. And so that's how Verix was born. We are today building analytical application at the speed of a couple of days to build a new analytical application that takes big data and harvest knowledge from it. We work primarily in two markets, again, for the sake of focus and understanding domain expertise. It's very essential for us. So we work in the CPG marketplace and the life science. Those are the two only markets, and we strictly focus on what we call commercial operation, which is, again, trying to bring value to marketing, to market research, to selling units, to distribution, understanding, for instance, out of stock, something that you all care about as consumers. You go to the marketplace, you spend time, you want to go to the shelf and you want to pick up the product you like. And it's not there, right? And it's disappointing. And And at the same time, it's a lost opportunity, it's a lost revenue. Can we predict a couple of days ahead of time that product is going to be missed on the floor, and can we do those things? So that's what Verix does.
And we'll go in a second and talk about the specific collaboration that P&G has with you guys, and I'm sure everyone would like to hear more. But I want to take one step back and ask, why in Israel? Why are you going for this kind of collaborations and look for them in Israel, as we are all here meeting with different Israeli companies from different industries? What is the role of big companies like P&G, like IPSOS, with the Israeli ecosystem, and why look for collaborations in this area? Sophie, maybe you take it.
Okay, so why Israel? It's probably one of the best questions you could ask me. Why Israel? Because Israel is a unique combination of few key elements that all of you, I guess, are living. We in P&G and with Lital, we have put that a little bit in a structured way. We call it the innovation wheel ecosystem. When we look at overall what Israel is providing us, it's a combination of what we talked this morning in terms of data, so measure investment in R&D and innovation from all the institutions and the government, measure focus from all the academia on being very, very open with the commercial and private partners. Israel is one of the leading countries in the world to have open relationship between university and private sector. The IDF, of course, is a fabulous source of power brain and commercialization of great ideas, and the culture and the people. I think that overall, what is really fantastic for us as a matchmaker is Israel is global from day one. You know, the market, and you know it pretty well, is not that big. And we saw it this morning, and startup and entrepreneur have big ambition, okay? So to own the world, to succeed the world. And this is very good for us because we are basically present all over the world. So this combination of few facts plus the culture about being global from day one and being, I would say, always forward-looking is extremely complementary to what we are. You know, Procter is not so young. Procter is 175 years. If you think about it, it's 3 times the age of Israel. So it's not so obvious from a culture standpoint to match, I would say, this. And Doron, you smile about it, and probably the first time we met, you say, oh my God, we'll never survive this, this culture. But I think this is what is fabulous. It's, I would say, the culture about the legacy, about discipline and intellectual rigor and business model with a fabulous, I would say, excitement, entrepreneurship, and everything is possible. This morning we heard one of the speakers saying, we don't take no for an answer. We don't take this is impossible. That's what we love. That's what we love, and this is where the combination of a company like ours with Israel can really come to outstanding, I would say, outstanding results. The last point maybe I would add is what Sharona repeated a few times, which is in the fields that Israel is leading on innovation is infinite. And it's true that I get the same question as she gets, which is, Sophie, you are a bit unfocused. Okay, what is this? You talk to us about smart product, about data, about marketing, digital marketing now, product supply, demand planning. And what is this? You cannot do it all. And yes, Israel is doing it all. So I think that's the combination of why we find Israel being so meaningful and so good matchmaking.
Shelly, you've been also engaged a lot with Israel and Israeli companies, especially in that field, I guess.
I think it comes down to 2 words, intelligence. I think Israel is the leader of intelligence because they have to be, and chutzpah. I actually think it's about chutzpah. I don't think it's about innovation. Innovation is a big word, and we all think we're innovators. It's a big word. You know, how do you innovate? It's challenging. It's stressful when you have to use that word. It's experiment. Israel's about, act and act now. There's no time, and there's no one else that's going to do it for you. You got to do it yourself, and you got to take the lead. And I love the chutzpah spirit. You know, we show up, knock on your door, and your US counterparts are all very smart, but they don't understand the need for speed, and it's not about then, it's about now, right now. And so if we call it experiments, Israel to me is the leader in experiments, and you're open-minded and willing, because you got to keep trying new things, and you got to break the rules if they don't make sense. So as one of the queens of rule breaking, I mean, I just find myself at home with a lot of other people that love to break the rules. And I think it's about working with people. It's not about the fact that you're Procter & Gamble, even though thank God you are, because we get to have some good experimental budgets. But it's not about that,
There is none.
actually. Well, you know, true. It's really not about Procter. It's about you. It's about Lital and Sophie being curious and discovering and asking new questions that, by the way, are really scary. They're scary questions. But you know who's going to ask them? These girls are going to ask them. And when you ask them, people like me get to play and experiment and try. And if it doesn't work, it's not, you know, the whole world is not going to fall apart. We're going to try something else, and we're going to continue to experiment. So working with that mindset, to me, is inspirational. And so I really value that.
And I think one of the best examples of this kind of experimental attitude is the relationship that we got here at a joint venture that was recently announced between Verix and P&G. Sophie, what it is for you? What do you find in this kind of relationship with the company, the big Goliath and small David startup company, specifically in this area? What are we getting out of it as P&G? And I would love, Doron, also to hear from your side. What do you think is the added value that you're bringing specifically in this area?
I think that we can both agree on what it is that we try to bring. It's business, okay? We are, in business in order to grow market share of our product, to win, to be number one. And in fact, what technology like Verix is enabling us to do is to be fast, relevant, in the right actionability mindset in order to be number one in the market. So I think in a very simple terms, we are in business to win, and partnering with top-notch technology like Verix is allowing us to do that in a systematic way, automated way, to really use our brain on the right, I would say, topics, which are the plan, the action, rather than putting together with a bit of luck some understanding of what's going on.
I think from our perspective, when you think about it as a startup, you start with an idea, and little do you know about this idea may be good in your eyes, but when you go to the marketplace, you start to realize how far it is from what people are actually asking. And I think that a lot of the startups are looking for a relationship like that, because it's a dream come true. You got somebody that is willing to listen, is willing to teach you if you have the ears to listen to, and the energy and the agility to keep fixing the things you do to match to what a business needs. And it has to do with a lot of, desire to listen to what they tell you, and don't argue too much about your baby is so beautiful. Well, that's the business. So you need to understand that that's what's going to make it work. And yes, it is experimental, and yes, it is going back and forth. And I think the double whammy for us being partners with P&G was that they have the same internal culture. They'll push you, they'll try to innovate, they'll accept new ideas, they'll challenge themselves. It's okay to say, I don't agree with that, and let's think about it. There is real ways to express it, so that's part of learning the culture of working inside P&G, but the roots of innovation or the roots of questioning everything you do exist within the culture of the company, and that would help us to bring a much better, more profound solution to the marketplace. And last point is, I think that it is essential today for startups, simply because most of the simple problems in the enterprise were already solved. So when you come now as a startup, you're facing really hard questions. And for that to really solve them and become still successful, you really need some very innovative company to work with.
I think a lot of the companies, though, startups, are like big data. They're all pieces of the puzzle, and by themselves they're ingredients, but they're not solutions. So it's the same thing. What is the question, and what technology companies do I need to cull together and make a partnership to be able to answer questions? And a lot of American companies are very selfish. It's all about me, and I don't want to share what I'm doing. But if you don't share, and if you're not an open book, and you're not putting your ingredients into the cake, you're not going to have a cake. You can't bake it with just one part. And so it is about creating partnerships with your vendors or your startup companies where we all kick in the parts that we do to help answer that big question, and we're willing to work together. And I want to contextualize why big data is so important today than it was yesterday. Because yesterday, no one talked about it. And all of a sudden, it's the things we talk about on every panel. The biggest difference and why big data has become so big is because the world has changed. We're no longer living in a push world where it's linear media and you program your time with your television, but media is all around you. We're multitasking, multi-screening on steroids today, which has complete implications of how consumers are pulling information when, where, and how they want it. So we have to integrate online social data with offline traditional data, with behavior data, with demographic data, with psychographic data, with behavior graphic data, with all kinds of pieces of information about the person. Because we're not 10 different people I'm not one person that's online and I'm a different person watching television. I'm the same person that is doing all these things at the same time.
And very soon with genomic data, like we said before.
Genomic data, we're going to add that.
You'll be glowing.
I am on this panel with you right now. But it really is about thinking about the story and path to purchase. Because at the end of the day, we can say this advertising is engaging in YouTube, but it might not be contributing to brand equity or brand share or increased value. So it might be a great ad that people are engaging and sharing, but if it's not driving sales, it doesn't really matter how great that ad is. So we have to be able to integrate all these streams of data. And technology today is enabling us to do it. It's just, what do we need? And not just put all the junk in the trunk because we have it. It's selectively picking.
Well, you touched on a very good point, because essentially the big data, as you call it, became big, but it also created some other phenomena that existed all along, which is it exposed two dramatically big elements that were missing into the data analysis. One of them was the ability to integrate disparate sources of data. And without that, it's very difficult to get insight, because let's face it, how do you know a particular product in Chicago is dropping in a particular segment of the store, and it was a result of another campaign from your competitor, if you don't merge all those disparate sources of data, point number one. And the second one is, now you got a huge source of data that is highly granular. How do you really look into it using the existing technology of, you told it in the beginning, it's about telling a story. Well, telling a story, scavenging in this giant cube, not going to get you fast enough to tell the story. So again, you need technology to help you to do that in an automated fashion using the latest technology to be able to understand, okay, those are the 5 nuggets I'm going to focus on to try to understand which one of them really explain the problem.
Can you add a third, which is real time?
There you go.
I mean, seriously, we got to add real time. I mean, that is one of the most important variables, because when we talk about predictive models, I'm telling you, you can't just retrofit a database from 2 years ago and migrate it today and just add some dots and dashes and say, this is good. The whole nonlinearity of how consumers are engaging with brands and media throws out all of our old databases, to be perfectly honest. And so the whole real time and choice and patterns and recognition of behavioral models is really what is making what you do so interesting and alive, because it's live data, it's real time.
And I agree with the point you made about the databases and the abandonment of sources. Still, people to some extent focus on, let's sort the data, store it. We want bigger storage, we want bigger database, faster database. But the issue is not storing the data. The issue is actually not storing the data, analyzing it quick, as fast as you can, integrating it as fast as you can, and just move on is what it's all about. And so we completely came about changing the paradigm of what we want to achieve with data.
Well, look at how our databases are built. Seriously, if you really look at it, just as a researcher, and we're guilty as charged, but we have television ROI. How is our TV working? How is our online? And by the way, in online, there's lots of channels because YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and Google, they operate all different. Those are all different channels and performance.
Exactly, different
and how's our
people.
mobile advertising working? And we're looking at each thing in a silo, and yet consumers do not. We're multi-screening. We're on all these things at the same time. So the question really has to be, am I creating content that influences in every channel that consumers pull when and where they want it? So we should do an ROI on content, not on media, actually.
Precisely.
I mean, if you really think about it, and we really asked ourselves the scary question, but we're not going to ask ourselves the scary question because who the hell wants to answer that one? That's really too hard.
Well, then we go back to sort the data and story.
Well, no, we go
easy.
back to chunking it into
Yeah,
sound
chunking
bites,
it.
because if we
Yes.
want one big answer, we're going to continuously not ask it because we're never going to get it. We have to start by saying, this is ultimately where we want to go. Let's piecemeal it so we can see progress step to step and look back one day and say, wow, look where we've been, and look where we are today, and look where we now have to go.
Right.
Oh, my God,
And what would you say is the big quantum leap that technology needs to take in the upcoming years to close this gap? What is the big challenge in this field, Sophie?
I think there are two outcomes of the discussion. There is one that is definitely very pragmatic, which is we need to, on one hand, the more we're going to make user-friendly and relevant the output of this intelligence, putting all the data together is going to be one of the challenges. Going with that will very much be linked. What is the input we give? I always say garbage in, garbage out, and whatever is a kind of data you give the technology to digest, it will, unless it is thought through before, it's not going to be the right output. So that's very rational and pretty normal. That's from a technology standpoint. I think that the beauty of what we are living is that you give back power to human beings, to leaders, and to the brains, because at the end of the day, you can hide behind dashboards and behind all kind of how to store the data, right, left, up, down, but really the ultimate measure is a business. And in order to make the proper decision, you need two things. You need to have the right data available at that moment, and the more they are real life, relevant, and helping you to make the decision, the better. But you need to have your brain in order to make this decision. And I think there is the coming decade, at least for marketing, is going to be the decade of leadership and really bringing back, I would say, the expertise of how do I use the data in order to make the right decision making, which is pretty exciting, I think. And that's why this combination of having more and being able to, I would say, waste less time to analyze while spending more time to do the work in order to get the results. It's pretty exciting. So I think that's what I would say see a little bit for what's coming.
Doron, how do you see the challenges? What is the roadmap for the future?
So there's essentially two areas from our perspective, and being technology is trying to solve business problem. The two areas of focus. We talked earlier about domain expertise. The issue with domain expertise is there's no one person that has the domain expertise. It's a piece that exists in every one of us. And then the question becomes, how do you take a very powerful analytical engine that runs across a lot of data and you make it better by incorporating domain expertise that's given from different pieces of the business, different people? How do they express that domain expertise into the engine? That's one area that we wrestle with. Not easy. Today we do it in a more semi-automated manner. We need to find better ways to do it to really enable that research that you were talking about in a really manner, fast. You talked about the response time and the real-timeness of that analysis. Well, that's sort of today somewhat the barrier to that and being able to incorporate. The second thing is that we wrestle with is how do you take information or insight and disseminate it into what you talked about, application, actionability. Some people work with different types of devices, different type of applications. How do you really integrate it to bring it to the hands of people as they need it, and not as you like to? And that's a whole different ball of wax. And I think we spend a lot of time learning from our colleagues here how to really bring information that is relevant as opposed to looking great.
What's your vision of the future as a research company? Where is research going on with this insight generation in the age of big data insights coming out of it?
I think it's going to be less about asking and more about knowing. So if we could understand who our customers are and what they want, because every customer is individual. We do a lot of journey research, path to purchase, what people want, right message, right time, right place. But how, as marketers, are we supposed to send individual messages at the right time, right place to every individual person? But I think what's going to have to happen is we're going to need to create the right content to satisfy needs and then put it in a place that consumers can pull it and engage with it when and where they want. And how do we make media sort of agnostic, where it's not about whether you're watching it in your living room, on your television, or on your iPad, or on your laptop, or on your mobile phone, but enabling that content to be available anywhere, everywhere, that the consumer can access when and where they want it. And I think a challenge to a researcher in a non-linear world where we can't measure everything and balance everything, that's very complicated. So instead, I think we have to flip it and just listen to what consumers want. As marketers, we need to make it available and then let the consumer pull it and measure the output in the store. Because at the end of the day, it's about purchase. I mean, it's about sale. It's not about engagement. It's about, does engagement and amplification lead to transaction and consistent transaction? Because you got a lot of brands that are just expecting their loyal customers to stay loyal. But if we don't keep giving back and responding in personal, relevant, customized ways, those customers eventually will be gone. So how do we create content that influences, make it available when and where they want it, consistently, and value our customer in a way that they feel that they want to be loyal and that they're going to stay loyal and that they're going to find you, because you will not be able to find them no matter how much data in the world we have. You won't be able to find them. We have to make it available that they can find us and that they want to.
And before we give some time for questions, I want to ask Sophie, we are engaged with a lot of companies. Can you give more examples of other areas and other companies that we've been engaged? And
wait, that's the best one. So let's focus here.
Definitely. But beyond that, since we have at the audience other startups that may be interested in engaging with us, what are the things that we would like to see when people come to us? And Shelly, I know that you've been in Israel also talking with companies, so we would love to know what would make your day in your next trip to Israel. What would make you interested in?
So I love going to Israel for lots of reasons. I love the country, the people, and a lot of my children are always there at different times, so it's phenomenal. I'd love to see, and I talked to Sharon about this, sort of a Rolodex by category of great companies in the big data category, great companies in facial recognition, facial coding, all kinds of areas of emotion measurement, media measurement, BI, CI, so that it's not one-offs, but I can actually, and I like to bring groups together. And what I find the Israeli companies value a lot, and I appreciate the fact that you're there opening your doors up to sharing, because a lot of the companies went in isolation, don't really understand the business problems. And so I'm bringing real business problems that my clients have and inviting these technology companies and startups to help me solve them. And I bring us all together and mix and match us as a team and, as a round table. So if it's facial coding and it's big data and I put us all together in one room, and at the end of the day having a client that is partnering where you're talking to us about what your challenge du jour is versus solving everything is very, very helpful. And so I open the world up and show real questions that I'm getting asked and say, I need help. And even if I'm taking you out of your comfort zone, I think you're just the smartest people that I've met. Let's work together and play.
Sophie.
Look, I mean, we are permanently looking for partners. We have now a pretty successful desk. We have a partnership with Hebrew University on some life science project. We have a joint venture with Duracell and PowerMat, as you saw. We have also a joint venture on healthcare with Teva. We have a few projects. We are working also with a fantastic company, DNA, that is leveraging structured and unstructured information to put it in a visual way and give you insights. So we have a lot of things going on and working already. I think for looking forward, there is one field that we want to further penetrate, which is product supply and manufacturing, and the other one is consumer digital. I think that's very, very big. There are many aspects over there. We have already good connection with few, I would say, VCs partners, and again, we are permanently looking at it. The company is continuing to supporting us very, very, very strongly. So just come, give our card, and we'll be delighted to try to do a matchmaking.
Excellent. I think we have some time for questions.
I actually have a question.
There you go.
I'm baffled with so much data. I live also in the world of data, and I'm trying to figure out how do I slice and dice it. So what tool? I'm very not which questions to ask, but what tool should I use? What do you use to make it sort out? Shelly, you're saying no, it's
because
beyond
a tool
that.
is not a person, and you still need the intelligence going in. So you need to start with what you want to answer going in. It's not about the tool.
All right, so in that case,
a tool has to be open source, open architecture, so that it can hold lots of different data.
So, and one example that Procter & Gamble recently did, if you could give us, how did you change the market because you had data and access to that information where you were nimbly able to reverse a position and reposition a product?
We have few examples. There is one that is in my mind. I cannot give many details, but indeed a brand was in a continent. Was selling properly, and then we, thanks to technology, we were alerted by an abnormal pattern of non-selling in a very small area. And this very small, this very live, and in fact, the fact was that a competitor was launching. Now, this happened in 3 days, so it's very, very, I would say, very, very fast. And thanks to the technology, and especially technology like definitely Verix technology, we are able to read that, to act and to put in place a competitive plan in order not only to not to lose anything, but to grow.
Did you squash the competition because of this?
Let's say that the Procter brand continue to grow and to be number one. Let's put it that way.
Well, there you go. This specific application of big data to be able to take over market share. And
actionable, real time. Mm-hmm. That's the real big aha that we find out from using these tools.
So this difference between a research paper versus a salesperson who can take that information and open,
absolutely,
be convincingly open a door that creates a revenue stream.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, questions from the audience? Any ideas of how to change your market share? Wait, first say your name and your company.
I think a mic is coming, so can everybody hear you?
My name is John, and I work with Kathy Ireland Worldwide. And my question, thank you for your panel. It was very informative. But my question is, with data management, that is a totally different area than content or asset management. And I want to know, do you have you developed or do you work on programs that, like for film, transferring film and then content and managing that and then being able to locate it and retrieve it? Are there any such programs or systems available for that?
Solution for, I'm not sure I understood.
Well, it's like for digital images, imagery, video, that type of content management. It's not so much data information, but it's more resource files.
We have.
There's quite a few solutions out there
Yes.
that do image management, image recognition, search. So take a look at Google and you'll find quite a few companies. Some of them are in Israel.
They are. Okay, thank you
Yes,
very much.
Absolutely.
Yes, you have few in Israel that are I would say doing what we are doing with data numbers, but with videos or with certain type of content, and that are managing them in a certain way to give you actionability.
Thank you. May I see you after the panels to get the names of those companies?
Yeah, if you leave your card, I'll try to send you a couple of names from Israel that do image processing.
Thank you.
Sure.
Beautiful. Right. So they'll come to you. You're dealing with big business when you're dealing with big data, although it's not so much the big data, it's the multiple ideas that come out of data and having to figure out what do you do with what you know. It's a fabulous area. I think we're going to continue this next year because we want to hear more case examples of how the market got changed with stories that we can really hear. What is the product? What was the market? Who got put into position number 2 because position number 1 became available through knowledge.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good.
Big round of applause to our
Thank you. Good.